This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
I want to play a little get to know Mark kind of conversation today. So get ready for that. So you've been doing this for over 3 decades. So right there, the elephant in the room is, all right, why does this Mark guy really care about my financial future? Why is he so invested in what I want to do? What do you say to that?
Wow, that gets kind of deep for me. I think to answer that question, I have to do it within the context of my family. And, my father was a military chaplain. He was actually away during Vietnam, servicing the napalm victims in the military hospitals in the Philippines when my twin brother and I were born stateside. And his career was spent helping people. And that had a big impact on the way we were raised and on the personal goals that we had. And, during my college years, I took a few years out to be a missionary, and I lived abroad. Had a lot of satisfaction in that kind of work and in helping people. As I came back, I had mixed feelings about what I wanted to do as I resumed my university studies. I was a good student, and, again, my dad was in the military. I didn't have a clue really what opportunities there were outside of the military. And I kind of defaulted to law because there were people I admired that were in law. If you're in liberal arts, I wanted to have a very broad education. And so my university studies ranged from the classics to Western American history to American studies. But I kind of felt like, what do you do when you're a straight A student in liberal arts? You go to law school, right? So I got accepted to law school, and as that got closer, I did not feel comfortable with it. There was just a nagging in me. My wife and I had married in college. We had a couple children during that time. We were poor as church mice, as they say. And I was doing door-to-door sales to businesses and just to feed the family. And the most positive people I met were either insurance agents or retirement planners. And I had never met people like this before, and I really admired that characteristic about them. They were optimistic people. They were just nice. So I started talking to them, and I started to learn more about that career. And I realized, this may be a great fit for me. And so I spent about a year actually studying different opportunities before I took the plunge. And my dad, he was just supportive. But when I told him I thought I wanted to be a retirement planner, he said, "Boy, that's sacred money." And I looked at him kind of oddly because I didn't know what he was trying to say to me. And he said, "That's sacred money." He said, people hit a stage of life where they can't make that money back. You got to be really careful with what you do. And so a lot of that, that idea of coming out of the ministry and having been in that myself, this idea of service, and then my dad's warnings about, you really got to be careful. This is kind of a sacred duty you're taking on to help people. A lot of that really influenced what got me into this career, and what's more importantly kept me in this career. A lot of people don't realize there's about a 97% attrition rate, meaning 97% of the people that get into insurance and financial services fail out in the first 3 years. And we've stuck with it not for 3 years, but over 3 decades and flourished by industry standards. But I think it really boils down to this idea that, to me, it's not about the money per se. It's about the experiences that we're helping people create in their lives. It's the meaning beyond the money. And that's really a big deal to me. We have a specific purpose in my office. The entire team is aligned around what we call the AWOL formula, AWOL. That in the military means, you've gone AWOL, you've just left. And that may be what you're doing when you retire. You may just be giving, a gesture to the man and leaving work, never to look back. But for us, it's about achieving a work optional lifestyle, meaning if you want to continue working, great. If you don't want to continue working, well, at least you'll be okay financially. It's a choice. We want it to be a choice because something like 43% of Americans retire prematurely. We want to make sure that you retire with dignity so that those last years of life can be the most meaningful years with your loved ones, with the community, whatever's important to you. We have a threefold purpose. First is to create income people can't outlive. Second, to have that be tax advantaged. And third, to have it be protected. And so we talk a lot about things like guaranteed income, about minimizing or eliminating taxes. We talk about protection like healthcare issues. There's a lot of things we do within that model, but at the end of the day, it's about giving that last chapter of life meaning beyond the money. Money is just fuel. That's all it is. So it's not about accumulating wealth. It's about wealth of money. It's about accumulating wealth of experiences, about wealth of memories. It's that time with our loved ones. And that's what we get to help people liberate themselves to experience. So that's why I do what I do. I love it. It can be exhausting because I'm obsessive about it, but I love it. And I can think of so many stories of couples who have come in, well, individuals as well as couples, but particular couples immediately come to mind who they may have thought their retirement was going to be one way, and we were able to show them how to make it much better than that. There are others who, because of health circumstances, they didn't have a lot of hope. We were able to show them ways to not only guarantee income, but to dramatically reduce their expenses in retirement without giving up any element of quality of life. And as I think I mentioned a few minutes ago, I've got a guy coming in this afternoon who literally became very emotional with me over the telephone this last week, talking about how he felt it was an answer to prayer that we were able to get together. And I'm not going to say that God led him to me, but I will say that prayers have been answered because they were in a pretty desperate situation. We all felt 4 years ago, and now they've done a 180 within 4 years, and they are so ecstatic about the fact that they see a future now where they weren't sure that they had that before. And so, yes, it's about money, but to me, it was about a lot more than that because it's about the hope. They see a future that's brighter than their past. And that's the biggest criteria I think I have in working with people is they have to be teachable and they have to want a future that's brighter than their past, because that at the end of the day is what we're trying to accomplish, and we're successful at it.
I love that, a future that's brighter than their past. And, planning for retirement, our financial future, for a lot of us can be stressful and overwhelming. Planning the beach trip with the family is a lot more exciting than sitting down and going through statements and figuring out, have I done enough? And then figuring out what do all these different moving factors mean? So, for us listening today here, Mark, how do we know when it's time to sit down with somebody like you? And specifically to you, Mark, do I have to have a certain amount of money saved to work with you? Are there certain criterias I need to meet?
Well, I don't have asset minimums. I know a lot of financial advisors do that. I would say, most of our clients have at least $250,000 in assets prepared, but I work with lots of people who have less than that. I work with lots of people who have far more than that. But my criteria isn't so much financial. It's really more about, are these people who, number one, are teachable in the sense they actually want our help. They're not just coming in to validate that they're a good do-it-yourselfer. These are people who want our help. They recognize that we have expertise in what we do. And more than anything, they want a future that's brighter than their past. I say that a lot because I fully embrace that idea. That's really why we work with people, is to create a future that's brighter than their past. And so if that is their goal, then we will meet with them. We will meet with them. And it may be that we're not a good fit for everyone. I know we're not a good fit for everyone. That's a two-way street. I don't work with everyone who comes to me in the sense that, generally speaking, I want positive people. I want people who are oriented towards others than themselves, family-oriented people generally. You'd be stunned at how many guys will come in here and will insult their wives in front of me to make themselves feel smarter or whatever. I don't work with people like that. I absolutely work with couples, though, who want to do things in the future, or individuals who want to contribute to the world. Again, so it's about having a future that's brighter than their past. We use that phrase a lot because it's very real to us. So we say, yeah, just come on in. If you are within 5 to 10 years of retirement, you have questions as to if you're prepared, how much do you need? Have you addressed all of the issues that are out there? We definitely have a checklist. We definitely have a model. We definitely have a formula to help you get to that place. The answers, the solutions are always, they have to be customized. But the key issues are the same key issues for everyone: healthcare, taxes, inflation, all these things, guaranteed income. These are all key issues. But we have a process we can take people through. And at the very least, they would leave that first appointment with a new friend and with a feeling of optimism about the future, because we'll definitely show them opportunities that they can capitalize on.
Now, Mark, I'm glad you're sitting down because this is breaking news here. Republicans and Democrats, they may not see eye to eye on much, God knows if anything. But apparently, there's a new study from Greenwald Research that says both parties agree that there is a retirement crisis, and then they've identified 4 of the biggest issues. Number 1, too much debt. I think we all agree there. Number 2, inflation. Absolutely. Number 3, uncertainty about Social Security. Makes sense. Number 4, lack of a pension or guaranteed income. Mark, take it away here. How do you address these issues when it comes to your planning meetings?
Well, I totally agree with that consensus, because these are all big issues. I mean, too much personal as well as too much government debt. There are two different sides to that. There's definitely too much government debt, and that foreshadows the dramatic increases in taxes that many of us are expecting. So there's tax planning that needs to be done. Most Americans have way too much money in tax-deferred plans, which means they have postponed the calculation of a tax and the payment of a tax into a future date when tax rates could be much higher. So debt is a problem at a government level. It's certainly a problem at a personal level. Too many people are going into retirement with credit card debts, maybe mortgages that they shouldn't have, or at least mortgage payments that they could get rid of with different strategies. Inflation is a fear because we can't control that. That's government caused, and Lord knows the government's done some crazy things the last few years that have hurt us there. There are changes that are going to have to be made to Social Security. When those are going to happen will probably be last minute, because that's the way Congress tends to function. They'll do what's right typically, but only at the last final moment when they're forced to do so, kicking and screaming. And then the biggest one is this idea of pensions. I mean, almost everyone, wherever you go and look at the studies, concurs that it was a real setback when when American society shifted to these voluntary payment programs like 401ks. As wonderful as they are, people gave up or lost this guaranteed lifetime income that they were accustomed to, that our grandparents were accustomed to, in the form of a pension. So those who aren't familiar with pensions, it's the basic idea that after you've done a period of time of work, your employer is going to pay you a monthly payment for the rest of your life as long as you live. Well, there are private alternatives to that, and there's things government can do in terms of education, as well as modifying 401k plans and the like, where we can bring far more awareness to the ability that Americans have to create income they can't outlive. Now, invariably, that has to come from insurance companies, because it's life insurance companies specifically that study life and death trends. When or how many people are going to die in a given year. They don't know you by name as far as who's going to die. The mafia may, but the government doesn't.
Right.
The insurance companies don't, but the insurance companies know how many people are going to die. And because they deal with those issues, they can also not only deal with people dying too soon in the form of life insurance, but they can also deal with people that may live too long or longer than expected in the form of an annuity. Now, an annuity has many different features. It means many different things to many different people because it's a real multi-purpose kind of product. But one of its fundamental core features is the ability to create income that a person can't outlive. And our political leaders, as well as just economists generally, everyone in the retirement planning industry understands the importance of not running out of money before you die. We don't want anyone at the most vulnerable years without money. And so annuities are a wonderful tool, a very unique tool to be able to close that gap. Now, should you put all your money in annuities? Of course not. It's a tool is all it is, and that it works for some people. It's not needed by other people. But if you don't know anything about these, we'd say come visit with us, learn how these unique products can solve the greatest fear that most Americans have, and that is of running out of money too soon. We can literally create income you can't outlive. And so people like myself, I mean, literally this week, I let one of my team members know that I want to set up 2 new accounts, one for me and one for my wife. And I'm going to roll some money out of personal savings. I'm also going to roll some money out of my 401k plan into annuities that can give us safe growth into the future and give the ability to create income we can't outlive. So I personally do it. I walk the talk, as it were. Periodically, like this year, like this week, I will roll money out of my 401k plan. I think of my 401k as a conduit for putting as much money as I can away in a tax-advantaged manner. But when it comes to safety for the future, I have to roll out of the 401k plan now because the government really hasn't allowed annuities until recently to start being introduced to 401k plans.
Because we have mentioned the word annuity, it's often referred to as the A word in retirement. A lot of folks get a little anxious when you start mentioning the word annuity. For some reason, it gets a bad rap. And then when we say, well, wait a minute, there's options that'll give you guaranteed income, it doesn't make sense. How can that be a bad thing? What are some of the misconceptions of annuities, you think, Mark?
Oh, my heavens, there's a ton of trash talk out there from competitors. The biggest problem with annuities in terms of those who trash talk them is they tell you that your money's tied up, and it's not. It's absolutely not tied up. You've got total access to your money. Now, there may be some liquidation charges. People need to understand that all financial products have a cost associated with them, and the question is simply when you're going to pay them or if you're going to pay them. Most people pay cost up front. Some people, to kind of get into the party, as it were. Other people pay cost every year going along. And with annuities, the more common way of doing it is you only pay cost if you leave the party earlier than expected. Now, I say earlier than expected because you get to decide how long you want to be in the party. You can choose plans with 2-year or 5-year or 10-year liquidation schedules. They're called surrender charge schedules. But most of my clients never pay those costs because we never put all their money into accounts that have restrictions on them. So all these accounts have some level of access to them. And that's the biggest misconception out there. And the bottom line is if we simply refer to the features of an annuity rather than the name annuity, people almost always embrace it. Yeah. I mean, everyone loves the idea of income you can't outlive. That's basically what Social Security is. So if you don't like the term annuity, then you don't like Social Security, basically, because that's its primary feature. Now, there's many, many other features people should become aware of, but that's the biggest misunderstanding out there. I think it's very disingenuous what some of these media gurus say. They give one-size-fits-all kind of advice, and it's basically like saying that, all boats are bad. I sell airplanes. You should have airplanes. Well, that's kind of stupid because if you encounter water, the boats really function well over water. So the real question is, where do you want to go? What's your end destination? If I want to go from Las Vegas to Hawaii, I invariably need to be talking about airplanes. And I don't talk about rental cars until I'm in Oahu or wherever. And so we can't discount a particular kind of vehicle, be it an automotive vehicle or a financial vehicle, without questioning what the critics' motives are. Because every vehicle has a place for some people. Otherwise, those vehicles would not have been invented.
Yeah,
and annuities are wonderful. I personally, by the end of this week, will have 6 of them. I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, my money is literally where my mouth is. It's not where all my money is, but there's a place.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.